Hi, everyone. My name is Heather from Sharebird, a site where top product marketing leaders share their expertise. We're really excited for today's event. We have a fantastic panel on mastering product launches. I want to share a couple of announcements before the panel. First, we've launched Sharebird Recruiting. We help tech companies hire trajectory changing product marketing talent. Sharebird is the largest community of product marketers in top companies. And now we're connecting the ones that are passively looking for their next role with top employers. If you know anyone hiring great product marketers right now, we would love an introduction. And if you're even lightly open to a new role yourself or want to see what's out there, you can share your confidential preferences at the link in the chat, which I'll drop in just a second, and we'll keep you top of mind for the right opportunities. Next, the format for this event. The first half of the event will be questions from the moderator, and the second half will be live questions. There's a Q&A feature on Zoom. Go there to add your questions for the panel and share your questions right away so that others can upvote them. Lastly, our next Q&A panel event is April 16th on influencing cross-functional stakeholders. The panel for that event are the VP of Product Marketing CRM at ServiceNow, the Head of Portfolio Product Marketing at Atlassian, and the Senior Director of Product Marketing at GitHub. You can register for that event at the link in the chat, which I'll also drop. And with that said, I'd love to hand it over to JD and the panel to introduce themselves and get started.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's have some fun. You guys are all here on a webinar on this Thursday afternoon. Thank you guys for all, signing in. It's a busy day. It's a busy week, and you're all here, hopefully getting to learn just a little bit more. So we've got a fantastic lineup, not just of questions, but also amazing speakers. So let's do some quick round of intros, and then you guys can popcorn it. So Chandra, you want to kick us off quickly? Tell us a little bit about you. Also, if you're hiring, also a good plug. It's a good time. And then I'll let you turn it over to someone else, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. I'm Chandra Patel. I'm a Senior Director of Product Marketing, currently at Salesforce. Kind of quick fun fact about me. I'll just say that my PMM superpower is a lot around messaging, but it's also because I like to get stuff done. So product launches fit right into that sweet spot. So happy to be here talking to you about that all today.
Yeah, feel free to popcorn it. It's always fun.
Oh,
I like
yes,
going back to my
popcorning it.
elementary days.
Yeah, Alex, why don't you go next?
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I lead product marketing and customer enablement at Superhuman Mail. We're an AI native email app for teams, and we're recently acquired by Grammarly, which is now Superhuman. So a little confusing there. I find myself getting tripped up on it still. But I spent my entire career in PMM, focused on launching and building new products at Google, Plaid, Venmo. And I shared this on social, but in reflecting for this panel, I realized that in the last 3.5 years, my team has launched 92 products or features. So this could not be a more relevant topic, and so excited to share more. Bob, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Bhavika Thakkar. I'm a senior director of product marketing at Microsoft, focusing on Copilot customer and product growth. I've Product marketing and product management has pretty much been my entire career across Microsoft, GoDaddy, Zero, Adobe, and then back at Microsoft again. My PMM superpower, building upon what Chandra said, my superpower is also getting stuff done, but also getting stuff done and ensuring we have a measurable impact. So that's something that I really specialize in, and hoping we can chat a little bit about that today. And I'm going to popcorn it to JD. Do you want to go next, or are you already done? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do a quick intro. So I'm JD. I will be your moderator. I'll be chiming in with some follow-up questions. I'll keep track of all of the your questions coming in and making sure that those get answered. But for me, I'm now VP of Marketing at Ting. We're just a small regional ISP. But before that, was very heavily involved in product marketing. Before that, I actually came up through the growth marketing side and coming up through agencies, and so made the transfer, the switch, as I found myself really liking the storytelling, the messaging, the launching, the strategy behind some of that. Sorry, demand gen marketers, but a lot of PMM is really bringing that strategy to the launch, which is everybody's favorite part when it comes to the PMM side. There's this a lot of anxiety that comes with it, the stress, the excitement. I don't know if you guys ever had launch parties. We've done all of these things just to try to get the team excited, but also how do you get the market excited? And so leads perfectly right into our first question. And these questions really came from you, the audience. And so we're going to do our best to answer a lot of those questions. Any follow-ups that you have, make sure you put those into the Zoom chat. But the first one is, as AI would say, in an ever-changing world, but it's true. It is moving quick. And so we are using AI. We've got Copilot over here. You might have ChatGPT, you've got Claude, you've got different styles, different ways of using AI. And so the question is really trying to understand for this panelist, how are you using AI for product launches? And then if you remember, we were talking about GTM engineering, and how we're building things now. And so the panel has been prepped for this question, and I'm curious, anybody want to go first? And then we can kind of round robin go through it, and then we'll just keep the flow moving. But anyone have a great answer of how they're using AI and how they're incorporating it into their product launches?
I'll start it, but I
Go
know
for it.
there's going to be a lot more words on this. I thought this was a great question, and when I saw it, I was like, "Ooh, okay, interesting to think about it," because we are all learning as we go along. Um, and my first thought was, I think this all kind of comes back to what I am seeing. Historically, we've been able to think a lot about how are we amplifying demand and top of the funnel and a lot of that and how AI starts to fit into that more clearly. I'm now really thinking about this and actually how is it actually helping us mature the funnel and actually really drive seller engagement and seller readiness because that's always been a little bit, hey, we've launched it, we're doing all this stuff. Here you go. Godspeed. That's always been a little bit of it. And now we can think very differently. So there are two kind of tranches that we're really thinking about it. One is really standardizing and using AI to develop the brief, the launch brief, what would be the announcement, taking all of the innovation and saying, what would the announcement be? And using that standard. Normally that's just such a big exercise. Getting that first draft, that's been really powerful. So that is one. And then two, thinking about AI okay, once we've done everything, we've got the messaging, we've got the brief, we've got all the value down, is how making that easier for sellers to consume and disseminate. So I'm like, am I using Notebook LM in order for them to have a different way? Here are your cheat sheets. And then also really thinking about the competitive skill, the competitive aspect of it and looking very deeply across our kind of core competitors and where we're trying to differentiate and say, hey, what is the lens here? And can we create more battle cards and things that really all of those assets get updated much more quickly with the power of the AI?
Very cool. Go for it.
I'm going to build upon what Chandra said. I think you said Godspeed. I think that's exactly what it is. Everything is now. If it wasn't yesterday, why is it not today? Why aren't we launching this? Why aren't we talking about this? So I think the way we have used AI in the past, both at Adobe and then how we are using it at Microsoft as well. In both companies, we were marketing an AI product. So I think using AI to do a competitive analysis, to understand, quickly do a gut check on hey, positioning statements, gut check on also messaging and copy, because one of the areas where we've learned now that with AI, the power of launch or product decision making has shifted from technical decision makers to BDMs to actually end users. The end users are so much more powerful, and the language that we use to chat with them is very different to language that we use to connect with ITTDMs, BDMs, and C-suites, those decision makers. So really taking the essential messaging and positioning and then developing how do we message to different audiences based on who they are is become faster now rather than going through multiple research and trying to understand what does resonate with different audiences. And then to what Chandra said, building the bomb of all the materials has gotten so much more easier. And lastly, I would say It's also about creative development, right? Because with AI, a lot of things you can develop imagery, you can develop assets, you can localize assets across international markets and different markets very, very quickly. So creative development has also gotten much more faster. And all of this really helps us get our products out there faster to market.
Yeah, huge plus one to a lot of that. I won't reiterate the piece on helping with cold start problem and kind of up leveling the team. Two things I think we're doing that maybe add a little bit to the mix. One is JD, you mentioned go to market engineering. And so I think just building on Bhavika's point, our team is really focused on delivering like hyper personalization at scale, right? So what we're doing is we're using a mixture of product signals, how someone might be using the product, where they're stuck in the funnel, with enrichment data, which maybe we pull from Clay in a bunch of different ways, right? And actually delivering much more personalized messages that help them get through the funnel in the way that we want them, that just weren't possible before we could build these like really rich automations. And I think it's easy to do automations based on a product signal. It's easy to do automations based on a market signal, right? But actually combining those two allows us to do, orders of magnitude more examples of that. And I think that's been really powerful. And then the second thing, which I didn't hear mentioned yet, and I'm super keen on, is how we're also using AI to give PMMs more superpowers across their functions, right? So influencing stakeholders and driving outcomes. I heard a lot in both of your intros, and one thing that I'm really pushing my team to do is build a prototype with Figma Make that proves your point around how a designer or a product manager should be thinking about something differently, right? Use the skills and the tools that we now all have to be able to influence different parts of the organization that maybe you didn't have the skill set or time to do previously. And so we're looking at prototypes for things, and now anyone can create those. Or even like we now actually have product managers and product marketers submitting pull requests, right, with code. And so when they see issues and things, they're actually empowered to go and like push through changes.
Nice. I don't want to do any pull requests. I'm sorry, Alex. So I cannot work for Superhuman. I avoid the code at all possible. But I love Figma Make, Figma Buzz. I love Copilot. I love interacting and like playing. And I feel like right now we are in a lot of like playing. You get to like figure things out in this like rapid development, like you're talking about prototyping, and that's prototyping messaging. It's like getting it to a more of a polished look. I don't know if you guys have got to play around any with synthetic audiences and doing some of that too, but even that's really interesting. How would a IT decision maker at X company respond to, something like that, right? And so there's some really cool things that I hope you all are learning, playing with. But what I heard here too is speed. It's faster, it's efficiency, it's getting, polish, like Microsoft. We used to have Clippy, right? But now we've got, Copilot helping us with our editing and like making it, even just that much crisper with what we're trying to get across. And Chandra, I love the notebook LLM. I've done that as well. It's like, here's all my resources, create a podcast that, I love our sales pros, we're making fun of them, as we do, but like they do really like something audible, maybe they're at the gym working out. Here's 15-20 minute podcast to like really digest something. I've heard really great responses from that, or even just battle testing it. They can go ask questions about it. And it's really about creating something that your audience can interact with, right? So you prototyping for Alex, that's for a PM. Hey, this is how a PM needs to see information to make a decision. Here's messaging, here's how sales team. So you're enabling, you're figuring things out. So really great insights. It's really fun. I hope we can all meet back in 6 months from now and ask this exact same question, just to see how fast it's evolving and how fast and even more mature we've gotten. And so it's really cool to see how this is going. But let's get out of AI. We got the elephant out of the room. We've addressed it. Next question. So Alex, I'm going to start with you on this one. 92 launches in the last year. How do you think about your strategy when you're launching for something that's essentially a parity play, right? So for those that may not be familiar with the parity play, you're just trying to match maybe what a competitor already has and you're saying, look, you already have this, I have it now too. Right now, you might tweak just a little bit to make it your own. But I'm just curious, of the 92, how many of those were parody? But also, how did you think about that launch strategy?
Yeah, yeah. And then it's 92 and almost 3.5 years, not a year. I don't think we
Oh,
could
okay,
have we
okay,
could
three and
have
a half,
held
three
it
and a
up
half. Okay.
together in a year.
I was like,
Um,
my gosh, this guy's team.
yeah, yeah. We're a fast moving team, but not quite that fast. I don't
Okay.
think our customers could have ingested 92
No.
product or feature launches in 12 months. No, but it's a really good question, right? And Superhuman Mail helps you manage email and calendar, and we've invested a lot in calendar because folks coming from different tools like need to be able to do to do the same thing that they're already used to using Google Calendar or Outlook for to manage their calendar. And so a lot of things just ended up being parody. And I think for me, a couple things really stand out. The first is finding those small but real points of differentiation, right? Like
Mhm.
we launched a feature called booking pages, which Google has and Outlook has and Calendly has, et cetera. But what really made it magical was not that you could create a page that someone could book your time. It was the end-to-end journey of how you could insert that time while drafting an email, which is sort of our
Mm.
core bread and butter, right? And so we really leaned into that experience, both when we were building it, but also rolling it out. And I think that that really comes down to holding the team accountable to what we call our remarkable ship bar, right? Building something that actually feels really magical and might save customers just a few seconds each interaction. Because we know that as you do that over time, especially in your email app where people spend 16 hours a week, you're actually going to compound those time savings and save a bunch of time. And then on the positioning and kind of how we message it front, it's not overselling it. It's like, hey, you know, you asked for this thing because our customers obviously asked for it a bunch, or we know we didn't have this thing, and so we built it. And here's why it's great, and here's how you use it. Right? We're not writing this long prose about the things that are not truly our tier one differentiators, I think.
Good call. Go for it, Chandra.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, just I was nodding the whole time you're talking, Alex. And it goes right back to the basic concept of you need to tier your launches. You have to really be thinking about whether they're extra small or if they're extra large and everything in between, and your bomb is different based on what size that is. And a launch is still a launch. I think sometimes people mistakenly say, hey, if I'm launching something, it's big, new, shiny innovation.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yes, that is sometimes the case, but a lot of times it is just the pure bread and butter, and it is of something of valuable to your customers. So you need to be talking to your customers all the time about the value you're adding to your product or your platform. And I kind of think of launches like they're two sides of a coin. You're either building more complete solution or a better journey, or you're driving this innovation. So, like, if you feel like you're kind of saying, which category does this fit in? It also helps you say, what is the bomb relative to that as well? So like just those kind of guiding principles. And, no matter how small the feature, like people want to know about it. Like they actually like somebody out there is like, I need this to make my job or how I'm working on this better, easier, more productive. So you got to get it out. In some ways, you might just be more creative. I will actually say like we do a release webinar, and for the major releases, like those things are so well attended, and some of the things that come up, and they're small but like the cheers that, like, I mean, people want to know that, so important.
Plus one to Alex and Chandra. I think one of the things, not just parity, right? I would also answer the same question in the same way when we're also behind something, behind our competitor, and we want to make a big splash around the launch, right? So
Yeah.
one of the examples, I worked for a commodity product a few years ago, and it was very hard to parse out one better than the other. Like that would just, splitting threads and splitting hairs. So one of the areas we used to discuss all the time is like Apple is a great example of like Apple didn't have as great a camera as Samsung phones did, right? At some point. But camera was still their focus and value prop and differentiating factor. And how they won the market was by telling a customer story and use cases and all those special moments in customers' journey, right? And so that's even when we were marketing our commodity product and talking about launches, whenever we launch something, we actually put our customer stories and use cases behind feature differentiation. And feature differentiation wasn't the front runner of our messaging strategy. And I think that just adds value in the sense that, hey, we heard you, this is how we're going to improve your life, or hey, look how this can improve your life of the product that you're already using. It's not about comparison with someone or always finding the differentiated value. So I would just add to that, like that can also be another way of thinking about launches. It's just putting customer stories in front of our other customers, potential customers.
Yeah, I love that. I'll go for it, Alex.
I was gonna to say one thing too that both of you made me think about is that, product managers always think the thing that they're building is the most important and needs to be screamed from the rooftops. And oftentimes that's great, right? Like that's the mindset we want every product manager to have. But as the product marketing teams, we have to figure out how to disseminate that information to customers in a way that's digestible. And I think both of you highlighted really good examples of what makes world-class product marketing in telling customer stories and also figuring out how and when to communicate something. And so balancing that with the internal stakeholders is one thing, but yeah, I think that ends up being really important when telling these stories.
Yeah, great call to also think about those the PMs, right? Here's my hot take. I love parody features. Like it means there's a market for it. They're asking for it, and I don't have to like convince someone or educate someone, which is a lot of times long. It can be expensive. It can be tricky. It can be challenging. Being first to market on the innovation side, as Chandra was saying, you got to build that excitement, right? But if you know that someone wants it, and they're just like, finally, thank you for giving me this thing. You're just like, going back to the storytelling side, that's like the fun part of marketing. I get to like go tell stories. I get to go like tell like what our customers are doing, right? And that's the magic side that I actually really like. So I'm not always so down on the parody. I know all of us love the brand new thing and going for the tier ones, but sometimes just those little like customer delight, those like finally you built the thing, it's like how many support tickets, how many times has this been upvoted, whatever it may be. So it finally got built, but yeah, it may not drive a ton of revenue, but it might help with retention or churn or something like that. So thinking through those kinds of things in your tiering, all really great advice. So yes, these three have a very lived experience, as you can tell. So let's take it to the other side, right? So we talked about a parity feature. Let's think about this other with the key considerations for launching something new. So now we're going to do new, highly saturated, very competitive market. None of us have ever been there, but let's think through how can we help the audience really, diagnose and think about it's new for you, maybe not new for the market. There's already a lot of competition there. Anybody want to go first on this one?
I'll go because
Go for it.
Chandra and Alex already went first in the other two questions. Yeah, I think it goes back to so I worked for a stock marketplace at Adobe for a long time and completely commoditized product, right? And I think that's when it's like oversaturated with competitors. New products to us because we were the last ones in the market, not the first ones where our competitors had been there for like 10, 15 years. And so launching that, I think the way, to Alex's point, the way is like, what is a differentiated value? Because we didn't launch a brand new product just because we want to chase our competitors. We launched a brand new product because we believed that we had something differentiated to offer, and our differentiation wasn't the product itself, but the ecosystem that it lived in, the connections it had with other products in the company, right? And so I think usually that angle, when the product as a standalone doesn't stand on its own and hold on its own, I think the ecosystem or the collection of user journeys or the collection of features make a more stronger story. So I think thinking about that as an angle has always served a benefit for most companies that have multiple products and are launching something in a very, very saturated market. The other aspect of it is pricing or monetization model differentiation. And that not necessarily like in a lot of ways, we always compare to our competitors saying that, hey, this is their prices, their subscription value. How do we just like make sure that we are not beating them? Or how do we make sure that we are not way behind them, leaving money on the table? So ways to think about is like differentiating with business models. I think that's also another area to think of. Like for the same experience I can
Yeah.
speak for in my commodity product experience is like it was a consumption based pricing model, and we changed it to a free trial, subscription based, and then eventually freemium. And that helped
Yep.
us get more customers in the door, experience our product, experience the ecosystem, and then drive that stickiness, right? So I think my two pillars of like launching something in saturated market is think about how it connects to the ecosystem and think about if there is an opportunity to differentiate with business model.
Yeah, I'll build on that. That's such a great point, Bhavika. I just, I had made some notes before this, and one of the things I'd written down was you always have to be thinking about differentiation. Why is doing it here better?
Mhm.
And that goes right back to your point about the ecosystem. And I think that's big company, small company, like that really has to start to play into it. I would also add in these situations, it is really important to make sure you're aligned across your go-to-market distribution with your product leadership, who those stakeholders might be. Like that moment, I said, hey, AI is a great time saver in helping you write your like launch brief. Well, maybe you need to make sure you spend the right time in iterating and getting that launch brief correct and everybody's aligned because having that differentiation in the value is super important. The next thing I would say, and it kind of builds off, what Bhavika said about different pricing strategies and driving adoption. Like, how do you get pilot customers in the door? Things that so you can
Yeah.
start evangelizing their customer stories, because that really starts to pay off the who's using it, why, and how. One of my experiences I had as we started to launch agentic technology was telling the story in a launch, not just a launch demo, like a demo of the product, but a demo of it in a customer's environment. And that was hard to do, like in order to really, but to show this is how I'm thinking about it. This is how I might be using it. And it becomes something very real. So that's another consideration. And, we got very hands-on with our customers to help them do that. And Alex is smiling. I'm like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I had an SE in there. Like, we're like, okay, we'll build out a mock environment. We'll try this. We'll try this. But sometimes if you are really trying to get that edge because it's competitive, you need to get creative. But it kind of goes back to customers always need to be a part of your storytelling here, because that's the proof. They're paying it off for you.
Yeah, this point really stands out to me and actually aligns a lot with what I was going to highlight here too, Chandra, which is that an element of social proof and how this is going to work for me, I think is really important. And so for us, it starts at being just really laser focused on who we're building for, what their challenges are, how we solve it, et cetera. And I think the platform element that you raise is a really important one, right? It might be someone who's just already using your suite of products. And so there's lock in there. You really want to focus. It could also be a very specific pain point that someone has through another product. But we have employed, as for our biggest moments, what I like to call building in public too. So having alphas and betas and really actually trying to find big voices. And that might just be someone with a lot of Twitter followers, candidly, right? Who is willing to try your product and talk about it in their network that you can then use as a case study to amplify, right? I love the example of let's partner really close with someone, put an SE in there and make it really shine. And we do tons of that too. But the building in public has allowed us to create a lot of hype around some of our biggest moments because people are out there talking about it, but it's not something broadly available. So then you actually have customers coming and banging on your door saying, "I want this, I want this," and that sort of social proof that you have from whatever you were doing before really jumps out. So I think that's the only thing I would add there. I'll also say Bhavika, to your point, I really like the point on business model differentiation too. I think that's a
Mhm.
really, really powerful one that not all PMMs use in their toolkit and really, really should be more what we use to drive growth.
Yeah, these are all like fantastic answers, and I feel all of them myself. When I was at AWS, yeah, I'm going to go use the AWS credits, and keep you in the lock-in, right? When I was at Cora, and I'm going into a highly competitive market against Google, Facebook, like I could go on for days about parity. I could go on for days about ads. Like, how many different ads are there out there? A lot, right? But there's a reason why all of them have said, why do they come to you? Right? What makes you different? And that's part of the story as a company. I know we're talking product marketing, but as a company story, there's a reason why we're choosing Grammarly Superhuman. There's a reason why we're choosing Salesforce, right? There's a reason why we've chosen Microsoft, and that lock-in is real too, right? Like, think about IT and like what they're choosing to allow into there and what they've approved with all the security reviews. Like, all of these things are real, and love the call out too around, let's do a freemium over here, right? Yeah, we can still be enterprise, but you can give something away, right? And there's a different ways of going about it. So we, man, I want to keep going, but we are at half the hour. We promised the audience that we would turn it over to them. So audience, this is you, live Q&A. There are roughly, looks like 6 right now. Go feel free to take a look at those, upvote any of these that you will. I'm going to start with the top. I'm going to work my way down. We've got Valerie over here. So shout out to Valerie for all the questions. Thank you. We've got some questions. Here we go. First question from Valerie. This is going back to parity features. And here's the question. With parity features, I've always heard from PR that they prefer to not mention these features loudly since they show that we are behind the competition. What are your thoughts on that?
Classic. Every PR person we've tried to push. Hey, can we get some PR around this launch? It's like, what's the differentiation? What can we say that how we're 10% different from our competitor? It doesn't matter, right? I think what matters is the customer value that we are adding. And so the way we
Yeah.
can build that upon that PR story is 2 ways. A, we may not need PR at all. Let's focus on influencer, evangelist, advocates that are on social media and create that buzz around the product through those channels, right? Like social proof, like we said. The other thing is we can go through PR, but if we can go in a case study route where like, hey, we implemented
Yeah.
this in a big customer, and they were our beta customers. They saw benefit over the last 3 months, and we are excited to launch this. That's another angle. But if we haven't heard pushback from PR, we are not even product marketers. So I'm guessing everyone, Chandra and Alex, also have some exciting updates on.
Yeah, I'll just say like that is all correct. And I remember, and this has been for a while, like the ability to get coverage on product announcements, it's hard. So the
Yeah.
PR team is really just doing their job, like knowing that it's going to be hard for them. So that's why I like really think about PR strategy and like my tier one launches, like the big stuff, the real innovation. But PR loves to showcase, or you can use your blog like customer success. That's great. They're always looking for examples of that. And that could be a way to kind of think about it creatively. And it doesn't have to be formal press releases, just many other aspects to showcase this.
Yeah, not much more to add here than those great insights. I totally agree.
Yeah, I think something that could help Valerie, something that we did at AWS was the PR FAQ, and that was always done before anything was even built. And it was working with the PM to write out the press release, that's the PR, then the FAQs. The FAQs really address where are they going to be excited, where are they going to be disappointed. Always a great answer because as you know, working with product, they can't build everything. and it may not hit the, V1, V2, right? Something may be a P2, even though you're like, come on, man, P0 this thing, right? So you can always refer to that. That could be helpful for you. And then layering in the not everything deserves PR. I think that's a really good one. And then the last one I'll say for Alex's side is, Grammarly and Superhuman did a really good job at the kind of a founder-led approach. So if you're at an early stage startup or in the startup world and you've got a founder who can be loud, think about that too as PR, as a way to get that voice out there or to leverage their network, leverage their voice, on LinkedIn or Twitter. And I'm glad we're still saying Twitter. I can't call it X. I'm just not there yet. Sorry, Elon. All right. They are coming in. You guys are doing really good. Okay. Most of votes. We have an anonymous. Okay. What's one launch you'd redo and what would you do differently? Woo! Coming in. All right. Who wants to take a launch that you would redo? What would you do differently?
I'm happy to start here.
Yeah.
So we built collaboration features into Superhuman Mail, and this allows you to share an email thread like you would a doc, comment on it with your team. You can share drafts, all these sort of things. And it's really cool, right? Because it takes what is originally a single player modality of email and it makes it multiplayer. But we positioned it as Superhuman 2.0 and a complete relaunch of the platform. And I think in doing the positioning in that way, it actually made it harder for us to raise awareness of the individual features and drive usage. We have since, I think, done a lot to really drive adoption of those features, and we know the teams that collaborate in the product today are our stickiest customers, they're our fastest expanding customers, et cetera. But I think that the approach that we took to make it feel like we were completely redoing the entire product experience or the brand for the company or positioning in that way was definitely not the most effective. So I would have gone back to what is our we have so in our tiering framework we have a tier 0, which is like our marquee moments. Like it still could have been a marquee without positioning it as a whole new like re-architecture of the product. So I probably would have done that differently.
Yeah, I'll add one and I'll just kind of gloss over it, but I think the lesson in it's very interesting. Watched something a few years back, and while I wasn't involved in the initial launch, I was involved in a kind of trying to relaunch and make it more effective moment. And it is a really good product, kind of serves its point. It was around like kind of helping sales teams, but more on like their learning and development. And we weren't really broad with our ICP because there's learning and development and there's like enablement managers and a lot of the competitors like their value proposition was a bit broader. And in retrospect, and one of the things we learned, and we learned it from market feedback, so it was okay. And it was like what we were getting, a lot of interest in deals, but maybe talking to people that weren't able to, like, they weren't the one closing the deals. So, but
Hmm.
really doing that due diligence when you're launching something that's maybe adjacent or slightly different, customer profile, really honing in on who's the ICP and why they might be buying it from you, is really important. And, I think that's something if we had done it a little bit earlier, we might have shortened some of the cycles in terms of getting it to like really it's kind of right sweet spot in the market.
I would add one learning from my experience. We launched something completely new experience, and we intended that that experience would be the future default experience. And I'm
Mm.
glad we did it as a preview, right? Amazing PR coverage, amazing across all the flagship media outlets. The product did not deliver, right? And I think I and it was all of our guardrail metrics. We were way below our guardrail metrics to for this to be like a default experience in the future. And I think the learning over there is like I think as PMMs, we should have a really strong say at the table, at the product leadership table as well,
Mm.
when something is ready for market, because the story, the wrapper, all of that can sound really exciting, especially anything's around AI, right? But is it the right product for the customer? I think that question, if you can answer before we go out in public, I think that would be huge.
Ooh, I don't have time to answer this one, but these are all three that are correct. And you like, I think we all know nothing is ever 100% perfect, right? UI changes, UX changes. I'm glad you hit that one because those always end up scaring me more than I think they will. You see the designs and you're like, this looks great. Good call. I'm glad you guys did the research. And you roll it out and you realize how much people hate change. you know, I can only imagine. I mean, I'm thinking like Salesforce Lightning, and it's like, when you get into there and you're like, whoa, what was that? Um, I can only imagine. So anyway, okay, let's keep going because the team is going now. So okay, what's a leading indicator of launch success that most teams overlook? Okay, so leading indicator of launch success, most teams overlook. What do you think that is?
I would say sentiment. And there's a lot of different ways you can measure this, right? So social listening is a great one because you can really see people who are chatting about your product or feature. Though my caveat to that is I try to stay off of Reddit for our own product for a variety of reasons. But one signal that we've found is a really good indicator of sentiment. So we're a seat-based business, right? And
Mhm.
you can add to your team and like invite coworkers to join. And so invites and referrals are a very monetizable way for us to measure sentiment. So when we launch something that people are really excited about, and we can see the qualitative feedback in the responses to our launch email, which all go to our support team and social, et cetera, are them actually adding people to their team or sending referrals, meaning that you know that they're talking about it within their circles. So that's been a really cool one for us to measure. We also look at the trend of those two metrics over longer periods of time as a sentiment indicator for us.
Yeah, I think this concept of sentiment is a huge one and can be measured in many different ways. I know we kind of also just said, hey, PR is not always important. This is one where PR would be important. Like, who wants to talk to you about this as you're launching it? We also look at things like, because we do a lot with like our events and then with, like, oh, this is going to have like maybe a big virtual event or maybe we're going to do a webinar. Like, what's the interest in this? Like, is this at capacity? Like, there's an example. This was something I oversaw, big content track at Dreamforce a few years back. And there was, it was account plans and it was so exciting. I mean, that thing, like, we had to just keep adding sessions because, like, people are like, I want to go to that. I want to go to that. I want to go to that. And that right there, I was like, yeah, this is important, getting this right. So there are a lot of different ways to measure it. And that's why kind of getting out in the market and getting in front of customers, potential users, that's where you're going to like start to see that in terms of is your value prop, is it interesting? Is your value proposition resonating?
Plus one on sentiment. And anything that we used to do was we used to just run the demo by even before it's launching. We used to run the demo by our customer advisory board.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
I
one.
think one of the launches, we like jaws dropped and we are like, okay, this we need to make a big deal about this. So I think, that reaction from customers is very important.
I like that one. I like anything like pre-market. That's a good one too. This is before you're going, you can kind of beta customer advisory board. So for those that are listening, get those early users, get that early feedback, whether that's sentiment, feedback, jaw-dropping moments, and really use that. You can really use it as like a guidepost to understand like, okay, cool, we got something here, right? Like let's figure that piece out. So really great advice. I want to go back to this one because we've kind of circled this question, but I would like to get us a touch more specific. When you're launching in a crowded or parity market, how do you actually create differentiation that customers can feel? A lot of good word choice in here. I really like the wording of this question. Um, Things that stood out to me: actually create differentiation. That's one. If it's a parity, customers can feel. All right. So we've kind of circled this question, but anything you guys want to, really pin the tail on the donkey. Is that right? Do you want to bullseye this? There's something metaphor there wise for nailing this answer.
I'm going to say something, and it's an important part of PMM, but it's kind of hard to nail down. It really comes from experience. It's the storytelling.
Yeah.
And you really think about this and you're thinking about it's like, what problem are you solving? There's like some very good classic things. It's like, who is the hero in this? What is the challenge that they are facing? Okay, how do you come in and save the day? Like, really, like going through that, and even just an example, slide, like one line on a slide, it's this, then it's this, then it's this, it can be very powerful, like to help you understand how to tell a more detailed story as opposed to just products and features. That's where it's that storytelling from, hey, there's some benefit, and then these products and features pay it off. And, if you're reading like we feel things, or you're watching a movie, we feel things in a well-told story. It's that same art that has to come through. That's why I will also say that AI won't completely take it over what we're doing. So,
Yeah,
Not yet.
building upon Chandra, I think I'll give a specific example because I wanna focus on the feel word that was expressed in the
Yeah.
question. So a good example, I worked in the SMB segment for a long time across many, many products. A good example is, you have your SMBs, they are wearing multiple hats. They're going to have time to spend with their family. They're running the bills in the night and making pizzas in the morning, and serving pizzas in the evening. So I think really focusing of a day in a life of a customer, and then be like, hey, let us give you this tool or product, and this will just help you spend more time with your family, versus focusing on this feature, that feature, and the next feature, and how we're different from our competitors. So I think as much as and it can be any parity feature, we could be behind our competitors as well on that. But really, we are taking the focus away from features to the benefit of the customer. And when we are focusing on the benefit, we are first talking about the pain point we are solving for.
Yeah, huge plus one to all of that. I think storytelling is really the PMM secret sauce. So I won't add anything there. The last thing I'll say on feel is that product experience also matters, right? We have a rule at Superhuman that is the 100 millisecond rule, that no interaction should take more than 100 milliseconds, because after that something starts to feel slow. And so we're constantly pushing the team, say, why isn't this faster? Or how can we make this one fewer step, so that it just ends up feeling better. And I think that customers get a lot from speed, right? And so there's an opportunity to push product and design on that level of craft for the things that they're building too, that make it, 1 week later, but actually a lot more polished, that ends up going further in the way something lands.
One thing I'm going to add to this is most of your audience doesn't know it's a parity feature. What I mean by that is they are not constantly analyzing every single competitor, every single solution, and keeping a matrix of parity features. That said, the people that in market are. And so if you think about the 95-5 rule, maybe it's 10% for whatever, maybe it's 20 for wherever you are. Okay, so maybe the people are in market right now might understand that, right? But like most of your future revenue from that, they don't know. You know what I mean? They just know you have it now, right? And so when they come into market 6 months from now and they do that feature parity, it's there, right? So anyway, I don't know. It's a slightly different way to think about the question, but I love the idea of feeling though, and I think the storytelling side of things as a product marketer is like what's really important, especially when you think about the adoption of that thing. So, all right, we are humming along. All right, this is a funny one. All right, more of a statement, also a question. Love it though. Okay, in this day and age, does anyone write battle cards? Does the sales team just do what they want with these? And what does your sales enablement support look like? Brackets. I love the podcast idea, by the way. And so, yeah, this is it's a statement within a question here.
Yeah, I took this off mute right away because I sometimes feel that way. I'm like, okay. And I remember I used to think that a lot. Like, oh my God, who's even using this stuff? Is there value in this or not? Couple things that I think are very important. First of all, actually, our teams, our sellers, they appreciate a good battle card, and some of these assets. So like it is very important and it's a regular motion, like have an AE council that we use. And it's not just our sales leadership. We get great input from them to help prioritize, but an AE council who actually like just a hand, tell us what's working. What do you need more of? What do you like that, like
Like that.
to make sure we're delivering value to sellers. That is super important. And there's something that we know that there are some common themes, like how do we take the best of on some of those battle cards? And this is where AI is actually helping us write them faster. And then we can scale it because otherwise every seller is going and doing and creating it on their own. How do we give them scale? That's the value of doing it. So that's like a general statement. Like don't necessarily dismiss it without really talking to your sellers first. I was making that mistake, and I'll own that. And the aid council made me realize I'm like, oh, okay, this is powerful. The other thing I'd just say, kind of and it depends on like your organization and the size of your sales team. But one of the things that we're doing is I have worked most recently with a specialist sales organization, and they're smaller, they're more focused, and that's been really fun. It's kind of a growth business within the big company, and we actually just it's a weekly 30-minute thing, and we're very targeted and aligned. Like we're going over this, we're going over that, very bite-sized. Sometimes it could be as simple as like, here's what's all of the information for a big event follow-up. Sometimes it is actually we're going through the pricing and details around a new product launch and consumption pricing. So just knowing where we have friction in deals or in creating pipe, and we develop an agenda for that actually like every quarter with sales leadership. So having that regular cadence, like I'm talking more broadly about enablement, but like launches, like, and when we already have that, like plugging in like launch enablement fits right into it. And we already have a vehicle to do it.
Yeah, this is a great question. As someone who's also actively resisted battle cards, I will agree with Chandra that there's a ton of value there. And I think what I'm seeing now is in the AI world, there are a lot more tire kickers. And that means that your customers are having more conversations than they were previously, right? And they're asking the questions, oh, how do you compare with this? How do you compare with that? And having really solid battle cards, including very specific ones, end up allowing the sales team to very quickly and succinctly answer those questions in the way that you want them to, right? And so I think that the model shifting has really made it more important than it was even a year or two ago.
I'm going to build upon you said specific, Alex. I think specificity has become more and more important where multiple AI tools are offering the same, the value proposition is the same. And our sellers are asking for like, exactly, can you give me prompts that work here versus prompts that work there? And how that adds value. So specificity versus fluffy language is resonating better in this extremely competitive era. And so I think the more PMMs get closer to the product and understand the product, the better they can really highlight those in battle cards or competitive landing pages, whatever the mode that you use.
So what I'm hearing too is like not even sales teams know all the feature parity across all the different products. It's just a point, right? Like they work for you, right? So don't necessarily assume the customer. The one thing I will say too that I think is really good to highlight is asking the question, having close relationship with sales. Are you using this? Is this working? And then closer to the product is really key, you know, because a lot of times the sales team isn't using the product, right? And so they can't necessarily, you know, give you that answer. But really good advice there, because it's difficult and it's tough, you know, when I keep hearing this or I don't hear this, and you're just like, what am I doing here? Am I wasting my time? But ask, get that relationship. I think it's a really good cross-functional. So all good points here. Okay, man, 155. We are at time. Okay, I have to turn it over. I would love to sneak in just like one or two more, but I need to turn it back over to Heather, who is going to read us out with some closing remarks.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Thank you to our panel and our moderator. We work hard to curate the best product marketing mentors for you to learn from, including the people on this panel. When you're ready for your next job, I recommend looking for jobs on their teams. If you had a question that wasn't answered, you can search thousands of answers on sharebird.com or ask it on an upcoming Sharebird AMA. As a reminder, our next event is April 16th on influencing cross-functional stakeholders. You can register for that event at the link in the chat. And lastly, if you have any questions or feedback for us, please email us at events@sharebird.com. Thank you, everyone.
So have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having us. Bye.